Pleasure for me to share this field about multimodal hemodynamic strategy and the impact of patient outcome. The learning objective of this presentation will be to identify the patient requiring hemodynamic management and after apply the appropriate hemodynamic monitoring in line with the hemodynamic management objective, define the multimodal hemodynamic concept, and after see the impact of outcome and also the financial aspect of this strategy. First of all, we try to identify the patient requiring hemodynamic management. As you know, every day we try to avoid postoperative complication, and these postoperative complications are linked to the patient's status and comorbidities, type of surgery, its duration, the degree of emergency. Also, the skills and experience of the operating and anesthetic team is very important. Postoperative management is another very important point. The notion that you need some unit, high dependency unit or intensive care unit for some of these patients. So it's needed to identify high-risk surgical patients. Most of the time, this is the so-called feeling. And this feeling is quite reflected by the Shoemaker criteria and Shoemaker score. When we look at this Shoemaker criteria, you observe that it depends on the patient's status. As you can see, previous severe cardiopulmonary illness, age over than 70 years, but with an evidence or limited physiologic reserve, septicemia, respiratory failure, cirrhosis, acute renal failure, extensive carcinoma surgery with some surgery at high risk of surgical complication, esophagectomy, gastrectomy, and prolonged surgery greater than 8 hours. Acute abdominal catastrophe, major vascular surgery, severe multiple trauma, and massive acute blood loss. At least one criteria define high-risk surgical patient. Another important point, this is the type of surgery. And when we look at this study was an analysis of 5 million admissions in different hospitals. And this author identified 200 high-risk surgical patients. And they also said that the age of the patient increased significantly the mortality. And if we, for instance, we observe this one of these surgery, open left hemicolectomy, you can see that the notion of emergency and the fact of age patient older than 65 years increase significantly the mortality rate. So two notions, the notion of emergency and the notion of age of the patient. Why we have to identify high-risk surgical patients? These patients are at risk of insufficient tissue perfusion and cellular oxygenation by hypovolemia or heart dysfunction, or both. And so we have to prevent hypo and hypervolemia and heart dysfunction by applying an effective fluid management, but also by optimizing the titration of anesthetic and vasoactive drug if necessary. And so we try now to apply the appropriate hemodynamic monitoring. We know that basic hemodynamic monitoring have some limitation. We perform usually clinical examination, but this clinical examination lacks of sensitivity and specificity to optimize the treatment and hemodynamic treatment of our patient. Blood pressure also, it's interesting, of course, but this parameter is influenced by both cardiac output and vascular tone. Heart rate may fail to reflect hypovolemia under general anesthesia. And pressure of end-tidal carbon dioxide have difficulties to differentiate between vasodilatation and low cardiac output. So in some patients, we need more, and we need to monitor cardiac output because the normal mean arterial pressure does not guarantee adequate perfusion and oxygen transport in our patient. And so this monitoring to cardiac output is a step toward understanding decrease in mean arterial pressure and oxygen transport. And it might be solved also the question what caused the decrease in blood pressure. But only 35% of anesthesiologists monitor cardiac output in high-risk surgical patients. And when we look this study regarding an American anesthesiologist and European anesthesiologist, we can see that American anesthesiology continue to use Swan-Ganz catheter. It's different in European. European use other monitor, more particularly pulse contour monitor with VGLO, PICO, and impedance metry also, and esophageal Doppler. But only 35 of anesthesiologists monitor cardiac output. It's quite surprising because we have now guidelines regarding hemodynamic management in our patients, and more particularly in high-risk surgical patients. This is the French guidelines, but we have also the European guideline, and this is the same. What this guideline say? In surgical patients considered at high risk, it is recommended to titrate intraoperative volume administration by measuring stroke volume. Because when you optimize your patient, this is associated with a reduction of postoperative morbidity, length of hospital stay, and the recovery time of oral finding for patients undergoing digestive surgery. Another point, and another recommendation, it is recommended to stop fluid administration in the absence of increased stroke volume, because it's harmful for the patient to provide more and more fluid. And this was due to this proposition of hypovolemia, but also hypervolemia are associated with deleterious injury. As you can see, hypovolemia can provide altered tissue perfusion, renal failure, anastomatic breakdown, cardiovascular abnormalities, splanchnic ischemia, multiple organ failure. But this is the same for hypervolemia, as you can see, edema, intra-abdominal hypertension, and other. And so finally, our job is to maintain in this Frank-Starling curve the patient in the flat area. It's not evident to maintain this patient in the flat area without any stroke volume monitoring. So this is important in high-risk surgical patients to get some information regarding cardiac output. So this guideline proposes an algorithm to fluid administration. All patients after induction and also after incision, because your sympathetic tone is modified after the incision, receive a bolus, a small bolus, 200 milliliters of crystalloid or colloid. And after two solutions, your stroke volume increase greater than 10%, and so your patient is preload dependency, and so you continue the free challenge. The other case, your patient, the stroke volume does not increase greater than 10%, and you stop the free challenge. During the intraoperative procedure, if your stroke volume decreases than 10%, you renew the fluid administration. So it's a very tough titration of the fluid administration. So what stroke volume monitoring device to select? I have not the good solution. But I think that the department would have been the ability to dispose an invasive and non-invasive device. And you have to prefer the use of an invasive device for patients at risk of intraoperative hemodynamic instability. I think that this is an interest of a continuous monitoring and is bit-to-bit measurement to evaluate the best impact of fluid loading on cardiac output. And you have to prefer a calibrated device in case of hemodynamic instability due to the variation of vascular tone in this patient. And after, we have to be logical. If you install a stroke volume monitoring during the intraoperative procedure, you have to think about the post-operative taking in charge of your patient. And the post-operative team have to use your monitor during that you use during the intraoperative procedure. This monitoring is associated with a financial cost, and it's quite not logical that this monitor is not used during the post-operative procedure. So we have think with the post-operative team in order to have a logical strategy with this high-risk surgical patient. From time to time, it's necessary to have more information. And you have to get some tissue oxygenation parameter monitoring. And we can get this easily with the oxygen venous saturation, and more particularly the central oxygen venous saturation with you have a central venous catheter. You take a blood sample and you can measure your oxygen venous saturation. The normal threshold of this parameter is 70%. And we know that this SpVO2 decrease in case of an increase of oxygen uptake, stress, pain, hyperthermia, shivering, and work of breathing. SpVO2 decrease in case of a decrease of oxygen transport, hypoxemia, anemia, cardiac output failure, whatever the origin of cardiac output failure. This parameter increase in case of increase of oxygen transport, and also in case of oxygen uptake decrease. And anesthesia is associated with a decrease of oxygen uptake. So this explains that during the intraoperative procedure, oxygen venous saturation is less informative because your oxygen uptake is very low. But if your patient has a low SpVO2 during the intraoperative procedure, you can say that this is an inadequate cardiac output. And so you have to optimize this cardiac output. Conversely, a very high SpVO2 is associated with a low oxygen extraction, and this is associated with a worse prognosis for the patient. And so we have to be careful with this information. In case of a high SpVO2, you have to measure lactate. Lactate because it's a witness of abnormal oxidative phosphorylation and inadequate oxygen utilization. And when your lactate decreases rapidly, it's good for the patient. This is the European intensive care recommendation regarding blood lactate. Blood lactate level measurement must be done for patients when you suspect a shock state. And a lactate greater than 2 millimole per liter is associated with a shock state. And so you have to repeat the measurement every 2 hours in the first 8 hours and after 8 to 12 hours thereafter. So during the intraoperative procedure, you have to measure lactate if you have the need to evaluate the oxygen tissue of your patient. And this is a real interest because a rapid decrease of lactate concentration is associated with a good prognosis of your patient. So when we look the risk of your patient, you have to adapt your monitoring. Your monitoring medium to high risk patient, arterial catheter can be necessary, and after you use a cardiac output stroke volume monitoring. And for high-risk surgical patient with a degree of hemodynamic instability, you need from time to time oxygen venous saturation, and after you can need a calibrate cardiac output measurement. Don't forget that your patient is under general anesthesia, and so you have to titrate your anesthetic. It's very important. So it's very important to monitor your depth of anesthesia. In this study, it's quite simple study because you observe its elective laparoscopic rectosigmoidectomy and 2 groups, clinical practice, standard clinical practice, and a group with depth anesthesia monitoring. And they use a target control administration of volatile anesthetic. So they are able to titrate the administration of volatile anesthetic. And you can observe that the sevoflurane uptake is less important in the study group, and this was associated with a decrease of intraoperative hypotension in this patient. This is very interesting. And this can be also produced by the IT control. This is a target control from General Electric. And so you can see that when you use this device, You observe a significant decrease of French gas flow, and this is associated with a significant decrease of volatile anesthetic, sevoflurane or desflurane. Under general anesthesia, your patient is under opioid. And so you have also to titrate your opioid. And this study is quite interesting because it's two groups. They use a sympathetic tone monitor. And this sympathetic tone monitor is a surgical stress and SGID analgesia. So in this group, they associated the SPI and the bispectral index compared to bispectral index alone. And so you can see that the number of hypertension, the number of hypotension are significantly less in the study group. So what you have to think that when you titrate your anesthesia, volatile anesthetic, opioid, so you reduce the risk of hemodynamic instability. Don't forget also that deep anesthesia is associated with bad prognosis of your patient. This is a triple O study associated intraoperative hypotension, low minimum alveolar concentration, and low bispectral index. And if your triple O is greater than 15 minutes, so it's associated with an increased risk of mortality. So be careful with the hypotension. You don't have to accept hypotension in your patient. So we try now to define the multimodal hemodynamic concept. The multimodal hemodynamic concept, this is a combined association with the different monitor. First of all, you monitor your blood pressure. You observe your blood pressure is low. So what is the preload dependency or not of your patient? And so you need in this high-risk surgical patient a cardiac output measurements. If your stroke volume increase greater than 10% with your fluid challenge, so it was preload dependency. Otherwise, it's preload independency. So why these guys has a low blood pressure? So you observe now your depth of anesthesia. Entropy below 40, and so you have to decrease your anesthetic administration. Entropy is greater than 40, and so you have to get a vasoactive agent. So this is a strategy, a multimodal approach combining different monitor in order to optimize hemodynamic patient. So what sort of perioperative hemodynamic strategy you can adopt? So you have at least to be reactive. You don't have to accept hypotension and tachycardia in your patient. So you have to be at least reactive. And so you give Flynn according stroke volume or other parameter. But you have the option of proactive strategy. And in this case, you can choose to maximize stroke volume in order to optimize your patient. But the means that you have to do, you have to be reactive and correct hypotension immediately. So now we have to know what's the impact of postoperative morbidity when we use a multimodal hemodynamic approach. We performed this study in our department, two phases. It was abdominal surgery, high-risk surgery. It's pancreatic colectomy, esophagectomy, and gastrectomy, and other high-risk abdominal surgery. Two periods. The first period between 2011 and 2012, standard practice, and a second period after the French guideline recommendation with a multimodal hemodynamic approach. And we observe the postoperative morbidity. First phase, we observe 56% of morbidity. Second phase, 41, with a significant decrease. We use for that the Dindo-Clavian score. It's a morbidity score, very simple morbidity score. And we observe also that the severity of morbidity was less important in the second phase. The odds ratio was 0.4. So we have a good impact of a multimodal hemodynamic approach. And this is in agreement with this meta-analysis proposed by Pierce in JAMA in 2014. In this meta-analysis, you observe when the patient benefits from a multimodal approach, this was associated with a significant decrease of postoperative complication, and the relative risk was 0.7. What is now the impact about the cost? This is a French study. This French study analyze the morbidity in 3 centers. It was private, general, and university hospital. They observed the postoperative morbidity was 36%. From the Pierce meta-analysis, the relative postoperative morbidity reduction is 23%, as I told you with the previous slide, with a range between 17% and 29%. When you have a complication, you have an additional cost. And this cost was estimated between 10,000 and 15,000 euros. The average was 13,000 euros. And now we try to measure the saving cost per patient when you use a multi-hemodynamic approach. So we use for that the Mercy equation proposed by Misha in 2017. What is this equation? M for morbidity rate, ER for expected morbidity reduction, C for cost difference, and this provides you a possible investment to implement a hemodynamic strategy. So if we use this equation with the 36% morbidity, we can observe a significant decrease of the strategy for the postoperative complication. So low range 0.17, high range 0.3, and we multiply by the additional cost. And so you can observe that we can save money from 800 euro to 500 euro in our patient. So based on the French national data, there are around 47,000 high-risk surgical patients per year. So the potential financial saving could be very high, between 65 and 44 million euros. So only to see you that you make some investment with this monitoring, but this monitoring can provide better outcome, and this interact with financial. So in conclusion, I would like to, I hope I convince you the need to identify patients at-risk surgical patients. There is a need to, the anesthetic titration is very important. And this requires depth anesthesia monitoring, and also the target control anesthesia is very interesting to titrate anesthesia. And after, you have to optimize hemodynamically your patient. So stroke volume monitoring is quite interesting. And with this strategy, named also early goal-directed therapy, this is associated with a better prognosis, and you have a financial saving cost in our institution. Thank you for your attention.